to the Valore Partners Power Marketing with Power BI session today. First of all, we're extremely glad that everybody could join us today, and we know that your time is extremely important, so we thank you for spending the time with us today. We anticipate that you'll get quite a bit of both high quality information and high value information as it relates to how you are driving marketing efforts within your organization, and more specifically as it relates to data consumption and how you're going to go about driving those marketing efforts. My name is Jason Smith. I'm Director of Sales for Valore Partners, and along with me today is Marie Rocchini, our Practice Lead for Information Management. Really where I wanted to start today is to talk simply a little bit about simplifying marketing efforts through data-driven activities. And when you think about marketing efforts, the one consistent component across all marketing efforts is data, and how you're consuming that data and how you're leveraging that data to make different business decisions about how you go to market with your products and your customers. With that being said, our simple definition of marketing is communicating value to customers and potential customers for the purpose of promoting or selling. My assumption is you guys look at it very similarly in your respective businesses. We probably have different people within different industries joining the line today. But again, the message there is whether it's product, service, or brand, the one consistent component of that is data. As you look through how you're marketing to your specific customers, things that you'll take into consideration are which markets, sales, advertising, and brand management, research, trade marketing, and digital marketing. All of those can be driven through data consumption, both internal data that you have today to leverage as well as external data, and really how you're mapping that data back and forth between each other and visualizing that data in different ways. That said, I'll walk into our agenda from here. One of the things that we want to talk specifically about is what is Power BI. And when you think about Power BI, believe it or not, it's really an extension of tools that you use today, such as Excel. Power BI allows you to take the Excel platform to another level through data visualization specifically. Allow you to drive insight into your marketing efforts, provide real-time adjustments to your marketing campaigns, and take a look in real time at social sentiment as it relates to your marketing efforts. Ultimately, tying all of that back to improving and tracking your ROI, which is obviously extremely important in whatever industry you're in as it's related to your marketing efforts. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Marie Rocchini. As we go through the agenda and the session today, feel free, if there's an important question along the way, to reach out over the chat in the GoToWebinar interface. We'll try to pick up those questions as we go, but if we can, we'll hold to the end of the session where we'll do an open up for Q&A at that point in time. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marie, and I'd like to start off first by talking about a study that was done Microsoft and IDC. Microsoft commissioned IDC to do some research for them to find out what was the impact of people that actually utilize data to an extent on their business. And the key point was that when they did that, not only was it a large value, but it was also important of how they looked at the data. And it was important that they didn't look at it in a traditional way. They had to start looking at diverse data sources, not only within the traditional data warehouse, but also consumer data, or globally available data outside of the company, more of your customer sentiment kind of sources. The other thing was to apply analytics to it, and then also to drive it into the entire organization, making it available to more people. Those three components are the pieces that make it critical in order to get the value from it. The interesting thing that happened when that study was that it was really focused on three pillars. And that was, how did it increase your revenue? How did it improve your productivity? And did it lower your costs? And looking at the power of the data, there is a significant advantages to corporations when they start looking at their data in new ways. And so with that, I'm going to talk about how Microsoft's platform is doing that and the kind of the product suite that we focus on in my area, which is information management. The thing that I like to make sure that customers recognize is that Power BI, when Microsoft first came out marketing it, it sounded like you had to be in the cloud. But the important piece is that there is a cloud solution to it, but they've also implemented it on the on-premise. And so I'd like to kind of start off with a side-by-side comparison of where you're looking at it. There are still always the three components of the BI space within the Microsoft suite, that being the SQL Server, Excel, and SharePoint. The Power View, Power Pivot, all those kind of pieces functionality used to require that you used analysis services in the tabular data model. Not a lot of the customers immediately moved to the tabular model, but it gave them great visualizations. So there was always kind of that, where do I go here, or do I go there with the tabular data model, or do I use the traditional multidimensional source? With SQL Server 2012 Service Pack 1, they changed the game. They allowed the data visualization to take place against analysis services when you're in 2012 Service Pack 1. So now all the things that you were debating about whether you should do tabular or multidimensional are available in both. And that's a huge game changer for us. The Excel, they've added some new add-ins to it to extend it to a higher level. If you're in the cloud, it's already automatically updated by Microsoft for you. On premise, some of them are free downloads for you to apply. The data sources on premise can be also cloud-based. In the cloud, you have the cloud data, but you can also get on-premise data from them. So there is a connector for you. The visualizations look very similar no matter which of the platforms you're on. Microsoft often focuses now, and when I talk to customers, it's more than just reports. It's how can I visualize the data. So in a traditional report, you see headers, you see footers, you see page breaks, you see lots of numbers. And when you're looking at such large quantities of data, sometimes it's much easier if I could visualize it within one screen, kind of like a PowerPoint presentation would enable me to do it. And that's what the Power View and the dashboard designer can do. Microsoft recently acquired DataZen, which is the new dashboard designer. It is a component that can sit in on a server. It also sits in the cloud, and you can publish your dashboards out, but it also has a client-side piece. So if you have people within your organizations that just want to create their own private dashboards, just like they create their own Excel workbook, they can also do it as just a client kind of tool and get their own dashboards that way. So that's kind of the side-by-side comparison. All the features really exist in both. Now, I will say that Microsoft develops for the cloud first, and then in the next releases of the product, it goes to the on-premises version. So you'll always find a slight lead over on the cloud side. Here's just a quick overview of what, and we're going to go into a lot of detail on what the dashboard will give you, but it's a nice visualization that you do have the dashboard. You can do live feeds from it. You can do the drill down. You can pin whatever your favorite visualization is up to the dashboard, and we'll show that during the demo. Here's just kind of an overview of the Power BI Designer. It is available for anybody that wants to go try it. They can download it on, to their own desktop and start playing with it. Nice thing is when they give you this, it also comes with sample data. So you don't even have to, if you want to just play with it, you can immediately start doing it because the sample data comes with it. When you talk about the dashboard, the data available to you, it has a lot of connectors right out of the box. ODBC and OLADB connectors also work, but you'll see that you can also have Microsoft CRM Dynamics. It has the QuickBooks Retail Analysis Sample, that's your sample data. Salesforce, all of those data sources are available to you through your dashboard. And the KPIs and things that you've been developing in analysis services are also available, and it's live. The other thing that I think is important about the dashboard, because it is corporate data and it's made available in it, is that it is encrypted. So even when they cache the data onto your desktop, it's stored encrypted onto your desktop. And the thing that I think I like the most for the customers is that it's no longer requiring a Microsoft-only platform. It does work with the iPhone, the iPad, with an Android, as well as the Windows platform itself. So you have the availability to go across them. You can create a dashboard for a Windows, and it'll give you a nice little drop-down option to say, you know what, I'd also like to create a version of this for a mobile device. And then you get to customize so that the screen is like, for example, what they show here, instead of the expanded version, it's like 3 KPIs that would fit nicely onto that device. Any questions at this stage about that? About the new features, about the architecture itself? Then with that, let's move into the sales and marketing piece of it. How do I utilize that technology? There is a lot of data out there today. And so it's important to be able to analyze, synthesize it, and then take action upon it. So we're going to start by looking at a high level and then drilling down into the details. So if we look at a dashboard in general, you'll see that we have lots of key performance indicators that we want. We're working for a company in which it's a retail industry. We're as a marketing firm, or the marketing team for them. And you can see that the total number of stores is 104. When I click on that key performance, I want to track my stores. When I click on it, it brings up a new visualization for me. So I'm keeping track of how I'm bringing the stores online, but I also can see how they're performing in here. It is a data visualization that when I hover over a given, for example, on the pie chart, I can see the underlying matrix that lies beneath it. If I were to actually click now on like the blue segment, not only would I get, because now I've drilled into it instead of just hovered, it changes the data across the whole schema. I've filtered, so now I can see that the fashion direct portion of it, I have 10 new stores. Well, you know what? All 10 new stores are in that segment. Altogether, I have almost 40 stores. So a quarter of my sales this year is coming from new stores. That might be something that I'm interested in making sure I get more information about. Now, I focused up here on the pie chart, but every piece of this chart is interactive with each other and connected. So if I come down to the bottom and I look at the bubble chart down there on total sales variance, and I click on one of the bubbles, you can see that it now further filters the entire report. So it's a nice way to be able to drill down dynamically and look at it at a very high level without seeing the details. When I do this, you can see that I came in here from the scorecard above the dashboard and came into this report, but it's really one of 3 reports. So you have access to all of the data while you're here. You don't have to come back, go back out and come back in. So if I just scroll between the pages, you can see that, whoops, I'm sorry, went the wrong direction. You can see that on page 2, I'm now looking at my new stores analysis, and now I'm doing things specific for them and how it's working with each other. When I go to the first page, keep on scrolling over, tabbing over, you can see.
It's not on, right?
Sorry. You can see that I'm now looking at the salespeople and what their market is for that. And you can see all the different kinds of visualizations that I have going on here. You want me to mute?
Yeah, I think we're going to mute everybody for just a quick second. We're getting some feedback from the line.
Okay. So now I'm looking at the district sales. I'm looking at individual people. I can look at individual performance of them. It's the kind of things that I'm, as a marketing team, as a sales team, I'm interested in analyzing that and how I can drill down. The entire thing is interactive. Okay. As a person looking at the data, it could be that the data that I'm seeing right there isn't exactly what I want. I might want my own permutation of it. Well, it's nothing more than as if I was in a PowerPoint presentation adding a new slide. When I click on it, I can see that I can add a new slide over to the right-hand side, do the plus sign, and it looks just like when I look at it, the data through an Excel workbook. It's like a pivot table to me. So I can, now the nice little thing is that this designer will also give you a little wizard to say, hey, if you've never used me before, you just swipe an item out here. So I kind of showed the highlight that it's how to build your first chart, and you can turn that off at any stage. But when I click on an item over there, I pick up a measure, it will immediately populate, and this one I'm choosing the category, it starts building up a chart for me. As I pick up new items, it continues to build the report for me. Now that's data. I might want to see it more visualized. Well, that little icon up in the upper right-hand corner of it says, you know what, here's all the different kinds of visualizations I can do to that data. So you can just kind of scroll up and down and make it the way that you like it. If this is the kind of report you say, you know what, every time I come into the dashboard, this is the information I want to see. I want to include that. Well, it's just like you pin any of your favorite things to it. So you click the little pin. When you go out to the dashboard, and added it to my dashboard. Now this is live tiles, so I could shrink it and move it into that little space that I'm missing in the far right corner. And now every time I come in, I will see the chart that I customized, so I can get a better perspective of what I want to see. And now you can see that anybody else that comes into this, if I choose to publish it, they'll see page 4 of 4. Another really interesting thing that Microsoft is focused on is doing kind of a language interpretation of my data. So they give you an open query window here, and I can start typing in information. I might not understand how to build a select statement. I might not understand how to go after my data, but I know how to ask a question. The same kind of questions I'm asking out on being in Google. So I just start typing, and I say, you know what? I would like to say what stores, and you can already see because I'm starting to build up stores, they're building me up a list of stores that I have access to see. And I say opened last, and my list starts getting smaller. And when I say last year, now I'm looking at the stores that opened up last year. If I said opened up this year, well, I'd have a different result set. So a nice way that if I don't know how to build it up, I couldn't see it in the report, I still can come out to the front end and ask the question and get answers to what I'm looking for. So a nice little add-on for that. Okay, so now we kind of looked at it at a high level. We kind of analyzed it. We know that we have some, a quarter of our sales coming in from new stores, but how are we spending our marketing money on that, and how is it affecting the sales that I have? So we're going to drill down a little further into, well, now that I have a high level perspective, how do I do that? Well, we always have Excel available to us. A nice an analytics environment for us to just drag and drop and filter data onto here. So you can see I took the data that was available out there on the dashboard and saying, you know what, here in my Excel workbook, I am looking at the kind of promotions I ran this year. What type are they? And what kind of discounts did I offer for them? This number that you see underneath the year, that says that's the minimum quantity that they had to order in order for me to give them that promotional discount. We can also see what the reseller sales amount is. And so I could be saying, you know what, that's looking pretty good. The sales team certainly thinks it's looking pretty good. But as a marketing person, I'm saying, well, am I being effective by that one? So I can come over here and I could say, you know what, I'd like to add to this report that's being published another measure that I can find. It's still mapped to my promotion, and I can see what my resale gross profit margin is. When I look at this, it doesn't look too bad. I have one quarter in 2007 in which I was a little behind on gross margins, but this is specifically for the category of components. You can see I filtered on that over on the left-hand side. If I say, well, you know what, my leading sales that I'm making this year are in the bikes category, what happens there? I suddenly see, well, you know what, my promotions aren't doing so well. As a matter of fact, in the 25% minimum sell category, I can see I have only, my gross margin is down to a negative 41%, which isn't really optimal of what I want. I can then say, well, you know what, how many people did I sell that to? I mean, was that a major sell item or what? So I click on the quantity sold, and I can see I sold exactly 25. So I know that promotion only probably hit one person because that was the minimum order quantity. So maybe this is something I need to start pulling immediately from a promotional offering. So being much more active and reactive, instead of being reactive to your sales, you can now be more proactive because you have access to the data as it's coming in. Another thing that you might want to do is say, you know what, I'm going to take that same kind of concept, and here's a chart that I always see out there, and it tells me the reseller sales amount and my discount amount. So I can see on those my clearance sales that I'm almost discounting 50% of my sales.
I think we may have a question. Can you check that?
I think that's your earlier question.
Okay. Sorry to pause.
Okay, no problem. Well, it's the same thing here. I mean, it's a nice graphical. I might want to make sure that everybody in the company can see, you know, the impact that, you know what, even though this chart looks pretty good, I can put on top of here what my gross margin is, and I can see that, or in this case, my product cost. I can see that my product cost exceeds what I'm selling it for. This is a much more impactful kind of report that I want to make sure is visualized to people. One of the nice things about putting it into SharePoint, into a Power Pivot Gallery, and or bringing it up into a BI Power Center in the cloud is this visualization is available to them. In other words, they're not just going to see a list of Excel workbooks. What we're going to do is we're going to save it, we're going to put it out to the cloud, and I chose to use Office 365 in this case, but you would have the same visualization using your SharePoint Power Pivot Galleries. And now when I come in, I can see what that data looks like. As a matter of fact, I can ask it to refresh itself every night after the batch run, whatever the data loads are coming in at night. I can ask it to be refreshed. It will refresh this visualization so that when people come in the morning, they can immediately kind of use this as a second round of a dashboard that I can see how I'm doing in terms of productivity. Is that, are my sales starting to exceed what my costs are? So just another way that data visualization is here for you. I also wanted to show you this timeline analysis. It's kind of an interesting one. You can see how sales progress over time, but sometimes it's the motion of those sales that give us other indicators. So not only is our sales increasing, but maybe it's not increasing steadily. So I have a little video here. Oops, that didn't let my video run. Let's see. Here we go. So now you can see my road bikes actually started to lose sales before I started, and now I bring in a new product online. As a matter of fact, as I brought the new product online, that seemed to actually promote my other sales. So I'm, as a marketing person, I might be able to recognize that I did certain things around that time that got a double bonus. You can also track, and that's what I was doing, you can track just one item. You don't have to track all items, and you can see the motion because your eye might not be able to track fast enough. You can see how that one item did over time. So I like this visualization because it allows users to have a more dynamic experience of how their sales are progressing over the year. And you can see like maybe moments in time in which the spike occurred during the month and dropped again. So you might be able to track that actual promotion that you were doing for the time of the month, that it spiked, but then it brought it back down. So as a marketing person, I might say, you know what, how can I get those sales to stay steady, not bounce up and then come down, up and then come down? Maybe I'm trying to keep that momentum going. And so I have new ideas, new ways to think about that because I have a visualization that helps support that idea. The other thing that I think is important is that we need to be able to look at data from not just within our company. We need to be able to look at, well, what are people saying about us? Because either through a survey or they're doing tweets about us, where can I get that data and overlay it on a sale? Now, if I could bring in the tweets feed, well, when you look at tweets, what they're basically saying is they're saying words. Well, how do I map that to a graph? One of the great new features that you have available to you now is that there is a machine learning component to the Power BI space. Machine learning puts predictive analytics behind it for us. And so we can feed our tweets to the machine learning, and it will say, you know what, I recognize in my vocabulary that certain words are positive and certain words are negative, and I can weight them. So I can weight positive and negative values because I don't want to read everybody's text. I want to know how did they feel. The other nice thing about the sentiments is that it is a web service, so you can interface with it at any time, but the other thing is that you can customize it. So what is a popular word, and here all my examples are in the bike industry. So it could be in the bike industry that bad is really a good thing. I got a really bad bike this weekend. Well, I don't want that to be a negative sentiment. So I can customize my machine learning to be interpretive of my industry. And so I can also help, shall I say, weight that appropriately and customize it appropriately to me. So when you start a new promotion, you could say, you know what? I can see that I released a promotion come here in January of this year. It seemed like it was pretty flat, and I could also see that I wasn't getting a really good response from the feedback on the tweets. So instead of waiting till the end of the month, or instead of waiting till 3 months later to analyze it, I can do real time, and I can say, you know what, there was something wrong with the way I positioned that. Maybe the way I worded it, maybe I needed to offer a different discount rate. But I can now be more reactive, or proactive, I should say, to react to that sentiment to me. And you can see I made a change in it, and wow, my sales automatically kind of spiked up. So another way to look at it, you can do this in an Excel workbook right now as a one-time feed. So if you were a marketing analyst sitting there at your desk and you wanted to start incorporating it, you could. But you could also ask and make it more of an automated IT thing that goes on behind the scenes, that they're going to read in these tweets every night and incorporate it into your data, just like any other data piece, just like your gross margins, just like the quantity sold. Hey, here's what the sentiments about me were this week, this day, this hour. Be more proactive in that sense. Since we're starting in that forecasting marketing sense, because that's really where the tweets were sitting, is that I already added kind of analytics behind that statement. Let's take it a little further. One of the things that Microsoft has provided, and they've done it for quite a few years, and since they've done it since, well, I think the last 4 releases of Office, it's good because it's a free add-on. And it's so popular that each release they continue to keep it with the product. It is a free add-on that you can download to Excel, and it's for data mining. So I'm using this option. This is kind of the poor man's version of data mining. It's the simplistic version of the full functionality that you have available to you using the machine learning that's in the cloud, Microsoft's Azure solution to it. So what I did is I said, you know what we have here is we have an Excel workbook that I put in that I know certain things about my customer, because let's say they're part of a loyalty program for me. And so as part of this loyalty program, they supplied me with certain pieces of information that I asked them to fill out. Now, not everybody will ever fill this out for you, and I recognize that. So we just have a couple that did this. We ran a promotion. We found out which ones of them actually bought a bike and which ones didn't buy a bike. And we said, you know what? Of the people that I know that did this, I would like to see, of all the pieces of information I've captured about them, what probably most influenced them to make that bike purchase. As a marketing person, I'm trying to figure out something about my customer. If I can identify what customers would buy a bike or have bought a bike, maybe that will help me do a better campaign next round. Instead of doing a global mass mailing, I'll do it to a customized group, because that's going to save me my cost. I'm not going to offer everybody a free water bottle that comes in the hopes that they'll buy a bike. I'm going to be a very targeted select. So I'm trying to increase my sales, but I'm also trying to decrease my costs. So I'm trying to do both. So in the data mining tool, there is a key influencer. It says, okay, what are you trying to see what you influenced? Well, I'm trying to see that I influenced the purchase of a bike. Well, of all these items, what do I think? Because as a marketing person, I already know something about my customers. So I could say, you know what? I think that marital status, gender, number of cars that they have, and their age are probably the things that make that decision for me. Now, I could choose all of them. I could narrow it down. So it's kind of a give and take, play around, find out what are your influencers. I send this then to the data mining engine. What the data mining engine says is, well, you know what? you can see what they did is they put a graph over here on the far right, left-hand side. And it says, you said age, but you know what? When I analyzed the data for you, age had no relevance on whether they were going to make a buying decision or not. What's up here in the blue is those that favored a no answer. What's down below is what's favored a yes answer. So those people that told me they had 2 cars were highly unlikely to buy my bike. The next influencer in that is that they were not married, probably want to do more dating, so that bike isn't a high thing for them. And then also what region of the US they came from. The things that most influenced them is that they had no car, they were single, or actually I guess with the married, yeah, so now single is yes, they might be more like for a bike, they had 1 car. So notice I have both cars of 0 and 1, both are influencers, but having no cars influence the decision more. And then it's more likely when they're in the Pacific. Well, I'm sure that if they did Arizona, they were less likely than if they were a nice, cool climate. So that's also a decision maker. Now, does that mean that I cannot make sales in North America? No, I'm saying these are influencers. The other thing that you can do is it can say, you know what, I'll do a side-by-side comparison, and that's what this last option here is on my screen. How do I compare value 1 to value 2, the yeses to the nos? We only chose 3 items, so it's, right here on the screen I can see it. But if you chose 10 or 15 items to look for influencers, well, this is a nice little tool. And what it'll do is it'll say, okay, here's the side-by-side comparison. 2 cars, more favorable to not. 0 cars, more favorable to yes. And so you can kind of do the comparison. The larger the bar, the more it influenced that decision. Now, what's interesting to me is that we just found out what influenced these decisions. Let's say that what I have is, of those that I actually know statistical information about, that was 1,000 of my customers. I have 10,000 people that responded to it. They just didn't tell me who they were. They're not telling me what their age is. They're not telling me if they're married. They're not telling me these other things. What data mining technology will allow you to do is say, well, you just took a sample size that I know something about. Apply this to the sample that I didn't know as much about, but I knew that they bought a bike. So that's how people are starting to fill in those blanks. The customer did not tell me that they were single. I'm going to infer they were single because of their buying patterns. So I can start building up profiles of customers because I don't really care if you're single or not. I just care that you act like that pattern. Or I don't care that you have 0 cars or not. I just care that you buy like that. So it could be, actually I am married and I have, 3 cars and, I'm 60 and above. But my buying pattern is because I have a favorite grandson and I'm buying for him. So you pick up a profile, so you might go ahead and offer me the same things that you're offering the young group because my buying pattern is influenced that way as well. So nice way to use data mining technology not only to find those influencers, but to fill in the gaps of the people that aren't telling you information about themselves. The other thing that you can do is you can predict how your sales are going to go. This is a feature that's both available here as well as PowerBI in the cloud. And what I'm going to do is I'm saying, you know what, I have a sequence of years. They have to be consecutive. You can't jump years. And I'm looking at my European sales, my North American sales, and my Pacific regions. I look at the data mining add-in, and I say, you know what, there's a forecaster out here. What can it do for me? Well, I say, look at this data set. I want you to pick, I'm using my year month as the field that I am using as my date range, and the rest are the measures, and I want you to do it. And I'm choosing all 3. You could choose just 1 if you wanted to. And you can see that the number of units to forecast is 5. Now I can tell you, just because it has nothing to do with that it's an Excel product add-in, but it has everything to do with that's just the way analytics goes. You can't, the closer you are to real time, the more accurate it can be. You cannot have this predict 3 years of sales. That's not what it's for. It's for in the immediate future, what do I think I can be? And so keep that as a small number that you use for it. It will automatically also determine whether you have seasonality to your sales, and it will incorporate that into the mining model. When it does, you get a result set that shows you, and those that are in the dotted lines are the ones that I'm predicting as my sales. So you can see that on the blue, based upon historical past, I'm actually not predicting an increase in sales in that region. I am, however, expecting some rise in the red, and then also the green looks pretty flat to me. One of the things that you can do is you can also highlight, you see that at the top where it says show deviations. Well, how accurate do you think I am? And so it'll give you what they think is the max and the minimum range. So the chart did the midpoint, but that's the area of variance that it can be. Now, you can see from this model that my sales were pretty flat, probably that I had fewer stores, and then I suddenly had this expansion, and so my sales spiked. So how good is this model based upon my data? Well, I have one more option that's available to me, and that is I can show historically, using this model, what would have it said was the last 5 periods, even though I see what the real one is, so I can kind of validate my model. When I look, and I just chose one because I saw that the chart was pretty busy. I'm going to look at just this region because that's where the last 5 months will come in. So keep your eye there as I click on the show the predictions. And you can say, you know what? It did not predict as high of a sales, but it did predict a trend of increase. The reason it probably didn't predict as high is because if you look, you're on an upward trend. It didn't have, it couldn't predict that you had such a high trend, but it was predicting that you were increasing overall in trend. So it's not really a bad model for you to use. And you could say, you know what? I bet my sales are kind of flattening out, but I'm coming back up for it. And that's what the predictive analytics will allow you to do. I just wanted to show you, highlight, this is what it will look like if you're up in the in an Excel up in the cloud, the Power View perspective of this one. You will, because it's in analytics, you'll get a little red button. When you click on the arrow, it will show you what the future is. And you'll notice you have the little blue dot on the left-hand side. Well, that allows you to pull it back to the past. Oh, I went the wrong way. Sorry about that. Show it back to the past. And now you can see the blue line predicted historically where you would be. In both cases, you're trending the right direction, but your model kind of over-predicted for you. And the last piece I wanted to show you is that, you know what, you get all this analytics together, but you still have that campaign that you have to present to say, you know what, this is my plans for next year. This is how I want to move forward. Instead of doing it just as a flat, here's some data charts, here's some that, you can actually tell a nice little story graphically how you're going to be opening the stores. So I wanted to show you this little video that's created with Power Map, and we're going to overlay our data, and you'll see that it says where are our global sales coming from. Now you could actually talk through this with and also put music behind it if you wanted to, but since it's a presentation, I left it out so that I could talk over top of it and say what I wanted. You can see as the timeline, how are your sales doing? You can move me over to another region. You can overlay here kind of how it's happening. We weren't doing so well in New York, and you can also, now you can see that they did it by, you know what, I'm going to do it by gender. How are my sales going that way? Let's look at the European market over here. How's that going? I can see that Italy is, and up there in France are my best spots there. I'm not sure where the French tour, whatever it is, but maybe that's where it is. And then you could close your marketing presentation by saying, you know what, that's where we were, and this is where we want to break into. So with that, it's kind of the overview is that we talked about Power BI. We talked about the architecture that it sits on. It sits on SQL Server, Excel, and SharePoint. That's the on-premises. Those are the things that you would have to have on site. You can always take it to the cloud, and then all features are available to you up there. In terms of sales and marketing analysis, nice job with the dashboards now being available to you to do your drill downs and your visualizations. But you can always take it down to the next level and drill into any depth that you want via Excel. You can also overlay on Excel data that's outside of your corporation and do the overlays there. So if the data isn't yet incorporated in the data warehouse, you can start looking at it on top of your data either way. And then there's always the analytics piece. We identified it using the data mining add-in for Excel, but the full functionality, the full power of data analytics sits within the Azure as a web service using the machine learning. We do have resources available for you to look at. We are Valore Partners, that's our website. My area is in information management, and we focus on that one. Microsoft site for the Power BI, in case you want to drill down that in more. Also the pricing model for it being up there. We also offer an accelerator in helping our customers better understand their own environment to help quickly identify with their data how could they take advantage of these new technologies. And so we do have kind of like a quick start, or an accelerator is what we refer to them as. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Jason for questions.
Certainly.
Details?
So, you know, again, as a next steps perspective, and back to the resource page for just a quick second, some of you may think, how do I get access to Power BI? What we've noticed from customers is that Power BI is usually driven by the business through marketing groups, finance groups, so on and so forth. However, there is an IT support function that has to happen with Power BI as well. Some organizations, the licensing aspect of Microsoft is also owned by the IT organization. So with that said, we wanted to provide this as a resource. Again, some of you may have access to Power BI today and not know it. Some of you may not have access to Power BI. In terms of the accelerator itself, we think it was something that we built to present customers with a low risk, high reward option to evaluate Power BI using their specific data sources in a proof of concept model, which also provides you with a roadmap on how to take that to a production environment internally with your own, again, data sources internally and externally. So what I think we'd like to do now, I'll mention also that we will be sending out this deck to customers through a OneDrive solution that we have here to the customers that registered and did attend today's session, providing with all the data information that was contained within this presentation, as well as the resources and the accelerator information. But what I would like to do, we did intentionally save 10 to 15 minutes left to open this up for Q&A. So we will take everybody off mute, and please try to do this one at a time, but we'd like to answer any questions that you might have. I do still see a number of people online. Does anybody have any questions for either Marie or I at this point in time? Okay. Well, it doesn't seem like there's any other questions. For more information from us, you can reach out to us at info@valorepartners.com, or you can reach me directly at jason.smith@valorepartners.com. You know, again, we thank everybody for taking the time to spend with us today. We hope that you found this session very informative and valuable in terms of how you're looking at marketing efforts, data-driven marketing efforts, and how some of these tools and resources can be implemented into your business. Any questions, again, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.